Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. I just finished sharing at Christ Church. Today is July the 5th. And in my sharing, I talked a little bit about this verse because this was the verse that changed my family, changed the whole story, history of my family. That was Mom Yolanda, my father Olavo, and myself. I'm the only child. My mom had lost 3 before me. But Mom was in despair. This is 1961. I was about 6 years old. And we lived in a little town of Paraíba do Sul, a little bit farther from downtown Paraíba, another 25, 30 minutes by bus, or an hour walk, and a very small town where my parents are originally from that area there. And Mom was in kind of despair because Dad was, by that time, an alcoholic. He was coming home most of the days drunk, especially in the weekends. And my dad had become a barber because with his deficiency, he had polio when he was little. And his leg was skinnier and shorter, maybe like this, his right leg. So he had a huge limp, even though would wear shoes that had a big, uplifting to try to compensate, but he had a strong limp. And many times I would go to the bus station because the bus came to a place that was about 5 minutes walking, 5-10 minutes from our house. And I would come to wait for my dad, and many times that was his crutches, as he had difficulty when he was drunk. My mom was also in kind of despair because she had worked hard. She went home to home selling, renda, selling sheets and blankets, and other times she sold some jewelry and trying to make extra money. My dad as a barber was not much, as you can imagine. And she had saved pretty good money, but when they discovered that he had lost everything, I guess the drinking, and they did some gambling. So this one day, my mom is walking home, and it's a little village with 2 little streets that goes into the various houses. And as she's walking from the main street into the little street of the village, she hears that a neighbor had somebody there preaching. And the person was preaching and was reading this verse. And she kind of slowed down her walk, stood a little bit by the wall of the house. The wall was just about her chest, so she could see the veranda of the house. And when the Baptist man that was there, he was not a minister, he was a deacon in the church in Paraíba do Sul, the little Baptist church. Although in the house at that meeting, it's a Bible study in somebody's house, in the veranda of their house, little veranda. And this guy decided to make an altar call. Interesting. I grew up with that. Baptists always had altar calls in every celebration, every worship, in every Bible study. Mom decided to go into the house and ask Christ to be part of her life. She gave him her weariness, her burdens. And that was the single point of beginning a change in my family that led me to where I am now. I'm sure of it. My mom went home, and there was something different about, because her experience was strong. Some people have it that way. Others have grown up and they have the same Jesus, but sometimes for people who come from a difficult situation, they have an experience that sometimes is very strong, as you may know, many of you may know it. So my mom told my dad, and from that time on, she said, oh, Sundays we're gonna go to church. She would take me. My dad many times would work on Sundays as a barber. He would not go, especially in the morning. Sometimes he went in the evening. Not long after that, my dad had drank so much that he went into coma. It was so bad that he was at our house. The people that came to see, there were candles put around him. The church, the little people in that Baptist church came. They prayed. He came out of coma to never drink again. He would become nauseated if he took beer or whatever kind of drink. We then, because of all the struggles in this little town for us, and Dad had lost everything, my mom said, let's try to find a better work in Rio. And we moved to Rio to live with a cousin of her under her favor. And at that place, our cousin, Iracema, vó Iracema, took us to the Baptist Church of Esperança, Igreja Batista da Esperança, downtown Rio, 1º de março, com Visconde Uma, still there. Pastor Davi Gomes, there I again accepted Christ. I would be in church every night accepting Christ, but then I was 12 by that time and accepted Christ, was baptized, grew up in church. My dad kept going once in a while, but never made a decision, clear decision. The years went by, I began to be involved in the church with the youth. I led the youth of Baptist Youth in Rio Association, and got really involved and went to study electronics. And then with the music group that we had in church, called Genesis, Quartet Genesis, and then Group Genesis, I was involved with witnessing, evangelism, music, theater in church, while studying, while then going to work. I worked for Philips and then worked for government. And then before I went to government, I started studying in seminary, because I thought, well, it'd be good to have somebody in the group that we want to evangelize Brazil to have theology. And my mom, by that time, had led many in our family, from my dad's side, from her side, to Jesus. None of them, before mom, had made a decision for Christ. And now there are 30, 40 within the families that are in Christ, that are solid believers. My mom was the main entrance, I would say this, that brought that word to Christ. She became a very strong evangelistic person. Wherever she went, we used to joke that for every 5 words that my mom, 6 was about Jesus. And so in my last year of seminary, this is 1980, I went to preach at the Baptist Church in Gamboa. And my dad came that time. It was one of the first time I preached I was about to finish seminary. And that day, when I, as a good Baptist, made the altar call, my dad came forward. And before I left Brazil into missions in 1981, I had the privilege of baptizing my dad. And it all began with this verse. It all began with Christ's yoke. We had rough years as we moved to Rio and didn't have where to live. We lived for a while after staying with friends. Then we went try our own. Lived in Cabeça de Porco, my mom working, and then I started working. And we had a long road, but the road of hope and faith started by choosing Jesus' call. Come to me. My mom did. And many came after her. So I pray that If you haven't done that yet, just try. Just ask Christ. Embrace Himself into your life. Ask Him to take your burden, your weariness, and accept His yoke. It's lighter. It's a much better yoke. And I'm here today at Christ Church. And I've been serving Christ in Portugal, in Spain, and the US. It's been now about 40 years. No regrets of the journey that started. And my mom and my dad were part of it. God bless you.